When you ask for a description of Delaware during the Civil War, you get a variety of reactions.
The loyal opposition.
I would say forced.
The explanations go a long way in describing what was happening in the first state during the 1860s.
Delaware was one of 4 slave states to have remained in the Union during the war between the states.
Everyone likes to say Delaware's a Yankee state, a northern state. Delaware was one of the 15 southern states.
There are strong symbols representing both the North and the South in Delaware during the Civil War. Wilmington was the last stop on the Underground Railroad. We met University of Delaware professor Jonathan Russ at the burial site of Thomas Garrett. Garrett is one of the most famous symbols of the push to get slaves to the North to freedom. Russ spoke of the attitudes in Delaware at the time.
Newcastle County in particular was overwhelmingly industrial and focused primarily toward Philadelphia, oriented both politically, culturally, and socially.
They were motivated by being self-governed. In other words, they probably believed in states' rights.
Just outside of Georgetown in Sussex County, a monument to those willing to fight for the South. The monument has been there since 2007. Jeff Plummer is with the Confederate Grays Camp 468 and a descendant of ancestors who fought for the South. There were over 2,000 Delawareans who had a connection to the South.
When the war began, they actually were forming militias down here in the southern part of the state to serve the South.
One of the more enduring symbols of the war is Fort Delaware. Originally built to defend Wilmington and Philadelphia, it became a prison camp for captured Confederates.
Fort Delaware is unique in Civil War prisons in that we held not only officers but regular enlisted men, ordinary civilians, and federal convicts.
Fort Delaware is open to visitors and gives a glimpse of what life was like there in the 1860s. Its population was over 11,000 after the Battle of Gettysburg.
You can imagine ships pulling up with thousands of prisoners per day. It was very overwhelming to the staff here.
Thousands died. There was no place to bury them at the fort, so they were moved just across the river from Fort Delaware to New Jersey. Now the Confederate dead there have their own section of a federal veterans cemetery at Finn Point, located next to Fort Mott State Park in the Garden State.
Prison conditions were extraordinarily difficult. Thousands of prisoners ultimately perished at Fort Delaware due to disease and due to unsanitary living conditions.
Our goal is to show number one, the diversity of the war when you take African Americans.
Willis Phelps portrays a variety of people at Fort Delaware. He helps tell the story of 19 black soldiers who were captured at Gettysburg.
They were skilled men, highly skilled, who made needful, useful things.
Phelps' other passion is the story of Polktown. It's next to Delaware City and the home of free blacks. His group is learning their story through the excavation of a cemetery.
A place like Polktown was a sanctuary. Delaware being a slave state, they call it a border state, which is a nice name for a slave state.
The Delaware connection to the war was intense. It was a reflection of one of the most turbulent times in our nation's history.
This is a civil war. This is a country torn apart, and that Americans North and South perished